There comes a time when a man has to stand and fight. That is the time when his friends' dreams are laughed at. This is the first dialogue that comes to my mind when I think about Usopp. He just got the crap beaten out of him by Mr. Four and Miss Merry Christmas, but with the help of Choppa and using some of his clever tricks, he defeats them both. Every time I see Usopp overcome his fears and fight an enemy with what limited tools he has in his arsenal, it gives me the courage to go out there and fight for what I want, whether anyone thinks I have the means to do it or not. He's easily the most normal one out of the entire crew, and you might look at Nami and Choppa and be like, he's part of the weak 3 of the Straw Hats, but Nami has her navigational skills and Choppa is a doctor, while also being able to transform into a giant whenever he wants. I have never been on a ship, but I would assume a doctor and a navigator are much more essential for a journey, especially in the Grand Line, than a liar with good aim. Usopp, Nami, and Choppa definitely avoid fighting more than the others, but it's easier for them to know their purpose on the crew, even if they don't fight, because as soon as the battle ends, they are the main stars for the rest of the crew, because everyone needs recovery and direction. Usopp's entire character is based on running away and avoiding a fight as much as possible. Nami fought with Arlong, and Choppa endured humiliation from his herd and the people of Drum Kingdom, but Usopp didn't have that kind of past. Did Usopp have a tough childhood? Sure, but not by One Piece, especially the Straw Hat standards. Yes, his father abandoned him, and his mother passed away, but for the most part, he lives in a peaceful village who are more than willing to bear with his lies, and he has good friends, and a crush who actually talks to him instead of looking at him like he's a stray dog. When I left Syrup Village, I left everything behind. Tranquility, safety. They face hardships every day, and they laugh like they're really having fun. That's why I decided to go out to sea. I want to laugh till I cry too, but if I don't fight with everything I've got, there's no way I deserve to be on the same boat as them. There's no way I can laugh with them. He says this when fighting the fisherman from Arlong Park, and it hits deep because you see him confronting his fears of being rejected while running away from a fight. Up until Jinbei, each and every crewmate that had joined had a purpose for joining outside of fighting skills except for Usopp. He joined the crew to be brave and fight alongside the others, but hates fighting? Isn't that contradictory? No. He faces his fears of the unknown each and every time he goes into battle, overcoming superior enemies by using any advantage he can find, whether it's fighting fishmen using fire and hiding in the forest, or using his negativity to beat the ghosts that nobody else could beat. He's the only one in the Straw Hats who joins for the sake of becoming a brave warrior of the sea. Take the example of his first fight as a member of the Straw Hats. He starts out wanting to run away from Fishman Chu and gets the shit beaten out of him. But then he uses the terrain to his advantage and eventually beats Chu. In doing so, he starts a pattern that is seen in most of his fights. Step 1. Deception. Use lies and misdirection to run away and provide comedic relief in a different way every time. Usopp is, and in my opinion, will always be a coward. His first instinct is to always run away, especially against enemies he knows are stronger than him. But he also draws his strength from his awareness that he's a coward and uses that to develop his specialty. Step 2. Long-range weapons. He uses his slingshot to try and beat opponents from afar because it is his specialty, but he developed that knowing that he's weak and needs multiple options when it comes to fighting. And when his lies and long-range weapons don't work, he does the thing that he's best at. Step 3. Get the shit beaten out of him. At some point in the fight, he will be completely overwhelmed. In fairness, most fights for shonen animes have a good guy lose a little at the start to make his win feel even better. But the way Usopp loses each time is different and interesting to watch. Sometimes he runs away, sometimes he's beaten up, sometimes he's handcuffed to a swordsman who uses him as a sword. But every time he gets the shit beaten out of him, he uses the anger and frustration he feels to give him courage and make him push through the difficult parts of his life. Most of us, when we get angry, right, we lash out or throw things or punch a wall, but Usopp channels his anger through step 4, smarts and help. He uses the help of his various allies to beat opponents stronger than him. And every time he does this, he gets new allies like the giants from Enies Lobby or the Tonta tribe from Dressrosa. But at the same time, he gains confidence in himself to fight for what he believes. When Luffy made the executive decision to buy a new ship because the Going Merry was no longer fit for sailing, he was brave enough to challenge Luffy, knowing how strong he is, showing that he had grown to the point where he's able to challenge people he knows are stronger than him. So what does Usopp have other than his aim when he sets out? Usopp is also an excellent salesman. Most of the time you can look at it and be like, he's just lying, that's not sales. Even I can lie. I lie about my dick length all the time. I mean, I don't, but I'm just saying you might. Anyway, take the end of Skypiea for example. He wants the tone dials, but doesn't want to give up anything. So he sells the rubber band he has. Honestly, I would die giggling before I do anything like that. I think I can put on a poker face, but not to the point where I lie to people who hold the upper hand against me. Like in the fight against Perona. She should easily have the upper hand, but he uses clever tricks and well-placed lies to sell the idea that he's secretly strong. Or when he and Robin are captured by the Tonta people of Dressrosa, he uses a small bump on the top of his cap as evidence to say he's related to Nolan the liar. His salesmanship goes beyond his lies. He becomes such good friends with the giants from Enies Lobby that they invite him to come to Elbaf, and they were originally working for the Marines. Did his knowledge of Dory and Brogy help him connect with them? No doubt, but it also takes balls of steel to talk to someone 10 times your size when they're set on squishing you like a bug. He's the quote-unquote normal one of the crew, and that is why so many of us connect with him. People who have arguments about Zoro versus Sanji, or who is hotter, Nami versus Robin, everyone always puts Usopp pretty high up in their rankings of Straw Hats because he's our common sense into the world of One Piece. He's the only one of the Straw Hats that doesn't have a purpose outside of just being brave. But that also means he isn't tied down to one task. When needed, he can be a spy with Robin, or help Frankie build something new and funky. Remember, he was technically the ship's repairman and tech expert before Frankie came along, but at the same time he is goofy, fun, and does moronic crap with Luffy and Choppa. After the time skip however, his fights become a little less interesting. Although he's powered up because of the new botanical powers he gains from the food island, he also loses a lot of variety he had from pre-time skip. He used to use a hammer a lot and would use dials after the Skypiea arc, and would also mix it up with some lies here and there, but would usually fail horribly. I do believe that is because the story became more cluttered and some of the variety in the earlier fights is not seen anymore. Not just for Usopp, but the show in general. The only memorable solo part he had post time skip is when he became a god Usopp, but other than that, he's been largely ignored. Usopp just didn't have enough time to shine in any arc after the time skip, which is kinda sad but also understandable considering where the story is at. This is where I would usually ask you to watch the next video of mine, but the only thing I want from you guys at the end of this video is for you to let me know what you think Usopp's reaction will be when he finally meets his dad. Thanks, and see you next time.